10 best shows that feel like an 80s action movie ranked. Nothing can quite match the extravagant spectacle of a 1980s action movie. Muscles were big, guns were bigger, but everything was smaller compared to the actors' heads of hair. Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger were kings of the matinee, spitting out one-liners as explosions erupted behind them. At the time, it seemed impossible to imagine a TV show ever getting close to the sweeping scale of destruction contained in box office smashes like The Terminator, but eventually TV caught up. While the standard television show still doesn't have the budget to blow up a helicopter every episode, a few adrenaline-pumping productions on the small screen still capture the spirit of an 80s action flick. So, for those who have worn out their VHS copies of Cobra or Commando, the following shows should be worthy replacements to check out. Before Alan Ritchson was solving crimes as Jack Reacher, he was driving a car that ran on blood and blood drive. The SYFY Schlockfest follows the story of a by-the-book police officer, Arthur Bailey Ritchson, as he infiltrates an underground cross-country death race hosted by the sinister Julian Slink, Colin Cunningham. When Arthur is caught by Slink, a bomb is planted in his neck and he's forced to participate in the race with a partner, Grace D'Argento, Christina Ochoa. The one-season show rides the line between science fiction, horror, and grindhouse movies. It's a big line, while approaching the material in a tongue-in-cheek, humorous fashion. Ritchson is compelling as the noble hero forced to do unnoble things to make sure the car literally has human blood in its tank to keep running. Blood Drive throws in everything from sexually charged cyborgs to a serial killer couple, and that's only scratching the surface of a show that's hard to find but worth the hunt to watch. A freshly released con man, Anthony Starr, picks up where he left off after a 15-year imprisonment when he sets out to track down his partner and ex-lover, Ivana Milicevic, in the Cinemax original Banshee. On the way to settle his unfinished business, he assumes the identity of Lucas Hood, a man on his way to start duty as sheriff in the town of Banshee. Posing as the sheriff, the newly christened Lucas will work to reconnect with Anna while staying one step ahead of her crime boss father. Fans of The Boys will enjoy seeing Starr glower his way through a crime story filled with plot twists and brawls. The series isn't for the whole family unless the family is fine with the occasional gory violence and a generous amount of sexual content, but Banshee is a nice throwback to gritty 80s revenge tales. Banshee ran for 4 seasons, so viewers looking for a substantial binge watch would have enough to sink their teeth into. A gunrunner questions his life choices in the motorcycle gang drama, Sons of Anarchy. The FX series follows Jax Teller, Charlie Hunnam, the vice president of the motorcycle club Samcro. After Jax finds his deceased father's journals that recount the original intent for Samcro, he begins to doubt the purpose and direction of his gun-running motorcycle family. Jax's new attitude is distressing to his mother, Gemma Teller Morrow, Katie Segal, who is now married to the active president of Samcro, Clay Morrow, Ron Perlman. Designed as a loose retelling of Hamlet, Sons of Anarchy serves up melodrama with a generous dose of brawls, gunfights, and the occasional Elvis impersonator. Later seasons of Sons of Anarchy get slightly lost in their own convoluted plotline. But even then, each episode is filled with an 80s action trademark of tough guys acting tough while looking cool on their motorcycles. The acting of the ensemble cast will hook viewers who came for action but stayed to have their hearts broken by one unexpected death after another. The end of Michael Weston's, Jeffrey Donovan, spy career is the beginning of fun adventures in the action dramedy Burn Notice. When Spy Michael receives a burn notice or an official declaration that ties to a covert agency are severed, he finds himself trapped in Florida with no money, no resources, and no idea of why this happened to him. Forced to work as an underground private investigator, Michael enlists the help of his ex-girlfriend Fiona Glenann, Gabrielle Anwar, and old friend Sam Axe, Bruce Campbell. The 1980s gave us some of the most iconic action movies of all time: Die Hard, Rambo, The Terminator, and Predator, to name a few. Explosive stunts, larger-than-life heroes, cheesy one-liners, and a relentless pace define the era. Today, many TV shows pay homage to the over-the-top thrills and aesthetic of 80s action films, bringing that same energy to the small screen. Here's a ranked list of 10 shows that perfectly capture the spirit of an 80s action movie. 10. Knight Rider, 1982 to 1986. You can't talk about 80s action without mentioning Knight Rider. David Hasselhoff starred as Michael Knight, a lone hero fighting injustice with the help of KITT, a super-intelligent car. Every episode felt like a mini action movie with car chases, explosions, and villains that wouldn't feel out of place in a die-hard sequel. While the tech and special effects may seem dated now, the sense of fun and adventure is timeless, making Knight Rider an essential entry on this list. 9. The Expendables TV series in development. Though still in development, The Expendables TV series promises to bring the bombastic action of the film franchise to television. Much like the films, this show will likely feature aging action heroes coming together for one last mission, complete with 80s-style fights, gunfire, and explosions. The Expendables films themselves were love letters to the action films of the 1980s, so the series could deliver that same nostalgic excitement. Even without a release date, it's one to watch. 8. Walker, 2021 present. A reboot of the classic Walker, Texas Ranger, Walker updates the formula but keeps the 80s action DNA. Starring Jared Padalecki as Cordell Walker, this series adds a modern sheen to the cowboy cop archetype. While less campy than the original, it still includes plenty of fistfights, gun battles, and tense standoffs. The procedural elements of Walker's lawman role, paired with high-octane action sequences, make this show a solid spiritual successor to 1980s action TV. 7. Ash vs. Evil Dead, 2015 to 2018. While primarily horror, Ash vs. Evil Dead has enough wild action and humor to earn a spot on this list. Bruce Campbell reprises his role as Ash Williams, now an aging, washed-up hero still fighting off deadites in the goriest, most over-the-top way possible. The practical effects, zany stunts, and relentless action sequences capture the spirit of 80s films like The Evil Dead and Predator. It's a bloody good time with just the right amount of cheesy one-liners to boot. 6. 24, 2001 to 2010. Jack Bauer may not have been a star of the 1980s, but 24 certainly feels like an 80s action movie stretched out over several seasons. The show's ticking clock format creates an urgency akin to classic action films, while Bauer's near-superhuman ability to withstand torture, chase down terrorists, and save the day with a minute to spare gives the show a heroic quality. 24 borrows heavily from the Die Hard and Lethal Weapon school of action, fast-paced, intense, and unrelenting. 5. Cobra Kai, 2018 present. A direct sequel to The Karate Kid, Cobra Kai updates the story of Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence in a way that stays true to its 80s roots. The show blends nostalgia with surprisingly well-choreographed fight scenes, managing to capture the spirit of underdog 80s action movies like Rocky and Bloodsport. It's heartfelt but packed with action, from karate dojo showdowns to training montages straight out of 1984. Plus, the synth-heavy soundtrack only adds to the 80s vibe. 4. Stranger Things, 2016 present. Stranger Things wears its 80s influences on its sleeve, from its Spielbergian plot to its synth-heavy score. While it's more supernatural than pure action, its blend of adventure, horror, and sci-fi feels ripped from a lost John Carpenter film. The kids are often placed in life-threatening situations, fighting against terrifying monsters and evil government agents. With bike chases, explosive battles, and heart-pounding tension, Stranger Things feels like an 80s action film spliced with Stephen King. 3. The A-Team, 1983 to 1987. Few TV shows exemplify the bombastic nature of 80s action like The A-Team. Hannibal, B.A., Face, and Murdoch were the ultimate action heroes, taking on impossible missions with a wink and a smile. Each episode was a self-contained action movie with military tactics,